So the question here is, does 1 over 5 equal 5 over 15, or is the ratio 1 over 5 e equivalent to the ratio 5 over 15, or are both these two ratios proportional to each other? Let's find out. So in order to turn 1 into 5, we multiplied the numerator by 5. So that here's what I show: 1 times 5 equal 5. So right now our ratios seem to be equivalent or proportional so far. So let's find out now if 5 times 5 equals 15. No, 5 times 5 does not equal 15. Therefore, these two ratios are not in proportion to each other. These two fractions are not equivalent. So number 2 has these two fractions, 2/3 and 12/18, and the question again is, are they equivalent to each other? Are these two ratios proportional to each other? We're going to find out. Well, 3 times 6 gives me 18, so remember now that whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So let's find out if 2 times 6 is 12. It sure is. Therefore, yes, these two fractions are equivalent to each other. These two ratios are in proportion to one another. So this time I am going to use the reflexive property simply to switch the two proportions around, put one on the right side instead of the left side. Well, you guys can see what I did. I did this because it's going to be easier for me now to divide by 5 instead of trying to figure out what multiplies by 5. This time I'm going to use division to figure out if these two ratios are equivalent. Since we found out that 62 and 5/10 divided by 12 and 5/10 is equal to 5, now we need to find out if the denominator 100 divided by 12 and 5/10 is equal to 8. Well, let's find out. All right, so I set up my division on the side, and this time notice that I made the decimals in red just to show you guys what we must do before we start the division. Notice that since 1,000 divided by 125 is 8, then the answer for number 5 is yes. These two ratios are equivalent. These two fractions are equivalent. These two ratios are in proportion to one another.